Well, folks, the video for February the 5th, 2019 is video number 2987. I just made a correction on that because I had them numbered wrong. But as you can see, I have Aristo with me, and his title today is The Truth of Karma and Reality. Aristo?
Hello, everyone. It's good to be here. And I'd like to say that, yeah, this title sounds a little bit pretentious. But you got to start somewhere. So start with the big claim. It's not like the big truths are going to be out here. What I'd like to propose today is what I consider spiritual common sense to a certain degree. This is because last month, Ron, you did a video with Steve Hart about reality and illusion. And then you were talking about karma. And you were asking something, and you often ask this question, is karma, why doesn't karma affect the people who do bad things? Why are some people absolved from karma? And again, I think Steve's argument was, well, this whole reality is basically like a hologram or an illusion, or it doesn't really matter. So I would like to address this issue. I don't want to address political issues or anything like that. For me, what has always mattered, and the apex or whatever, the spearhead of everything I've said is based on attitude. Our attitude matters. So our views about reality shape our attitude. If we have a certain view of reality that's, meaningless to us or somehow doesn't inspire us, then we can be demoralized. We may think we're objective and think rationally about it, but it's that emotional fuel that motivates us to resist fake news or that hones our discernment. Reason hones discernment, of course, but reason can be conditioned. Reason can be modified by people's arguments and rhetoric. We can be swayed, so our reason just follows a bunch of bullshit thinking that it's real. So our intuition, however, and sometimes our intuition can as well, because if we have a certain hidden motivational complex, if we do things out of narcissistic reasons or self-pity or a need for validation that we don't recognize, I mean, none of these things are wrong. It's that if we don't recognize this and are in denial, then they can really move us toward self-deception. So the thing is, when we have an inspiring view of reality, however, and of course we can take this to an extreme, our view of reality can justify apathy. It can justify not caring. It can also justify a sense of, well, but in the next world, medieval Christianity had a problem with that because life sucked so bad in the Middle Ages that, they were afraid. That's why I don't believe in the flat earth theory, because one of the reasons, because the church basically insisted on it. They insisted that if you leave, you're going to fall off the edge. They didn't want people to leave. Everybody would have left it. Oh, just go on a boat. Half of you will die, but, at least some of you will make it. There's a whole pristine free land. Of course, there's, people who will kill you over there, but they're better than the ones over here with their, armor and who knows what, organized armies. So they would leave, or they would commit suicide. Suicide cults would have sprung up because of the misery. No, you're going to go to hell if you commit suicide. We'll excommunicate. No, stay here in your misery and be our slaves. You got no other choice. So their attitude, the Christianity just encircled people with fear until it was time for the ones in charge to say, oh, we got to get people out of this because we got a whole new world to conquer. We got all this technology, war machines, new technology, new science. Let's change the paradigm. So, we'll give people a few freedoms. We'll create republics. We'll create democracies. We'll make people think that they have a choice, and we'll make them love material goods much more than they already do and disconnect them from nature so they can create bigger and better toys for us with which we will enslave them even better next, our descendants. It's almost like there are entities that are older, that don't have human lifespans. That's why some people would say, oh, these are reptiles or they're mortals or they're gods or whatever. There's a kind of effect that transcends a human lifespan in this thing.
Have you seen the videos with the different skulls? The skulls that have that don't grow together like a human skull. They're non-human skulls, but they're generally elongated skulls too.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's mutations, there's aberrations. People would elongate their skulls by binding them.
Well,
I don't think, and a lot of these are hoaxes. I don't think you don't see royals hanging around with elongated skulls. You don't see, except not today, not in the old days either. In Egypt, they did have elongated skulls, but they do in African tribes as well. I mean, they weren't like the movie Alien or something like that. So I think some of this is an exaggeration. See, you don't have to mythologize this. What is going on is in the so-called world of the unseen that's blended in with the world of the seen. I did agree with Steve Hart in saying that, look, the world is an illusion because we don't see everything. Or what we see, what we interpret with our minds isn't what's going on, actually. You know, in quantum mechanics and quantum theory, for example, there's a confusion between, well, what is it? What's going on here? You can't really separate what you're perceiving from what's going on. You know, even if what you're perceiving isn't really what's going on is not independent from what you're perceiving. So it gets confusing there. That's the thing with, so what's reality then? Well, often I hear the metaphor of the hologram. So I'd like to get into this a little bit. What is a hologram? People, when they talk about a hologram, they think of lasers. So they say, oh, it's made of light, so it's really not material, so it must be an illusion. You pass your hand through light, it's not solid. But that's not really what a hologram is. What a laser hologram works as follows, and you can all look this up. A laser beam that has one frequency, it's called monochromatic. A frequency basically makes it one color, like red, for example. You bounce this off of an object, just like normal light bounces off of an object and it hits a photographic plate. However, before you do that, you split the beam, and so part of the beam goes around and meets the first beam, but it hasn't bounced off of any objects. It's still the regular red light. The pattern that's created by the intersection of what we call the scattered beam, because when it bounces off an apple, for example, it doesn't go in a straight line anymore. It just scatters in different directions. So waveforms that are coming off of any kind of formation that have a kind of mirror negative image of the formation that meet other waveforms of a certain frequency, you know, of a certain direction, the interference pattern, that's a hologram. It's a meeting point of two wavefronts, two wavefronts, complex wavefronts. So you have what some of the waves reinforce each other, some of the waves cancel each other out. So you have this gobbledygook in there that in order to actually interpret it, you have to stick another beam there. If you pass another regular beam of single frequency light through the plate that's recorded this pattern, the original image comes out in front of it. You can see an apple in 3 dimensions and all of this come out. So what the scientist that used this, his name was Bohm, I think, the scientist that actually used this analogy did it. I know this is confusing, but he said it because to say, look, you're seeing an apple, but this apple is really a whole bunch of waveforms meeting together. And it is an apple because, you know, your perception has filtered out everything except what the apple is. However, it's also more than that. See, my point is a hologram is more than what we're seeing. It's not less. The waveforms aren't just, oh, it's just energy. It's just energy, so you can, it's insubstantial, or it's just information. To say something is just information is like saying, well, it's like writing on paper without the paper. It's like the letters falling off of the paper and just lying on the floor, you know. There is no such thing as information without somewhere to put the information. Like a computer, without a computer you can't have, or electronic circuits, digital information is meaningless. So let's say there's an ether field or something like that. So there is, if the light is our awareness, our consciousness, okay, and the frequency of that consciousness is love, and and there may be other frequencies, but let's say that to create something, you need a love frequency. The love frequency meets the intention for anything. I want to create a human being. So the human being basically, the pattern for the human being, the essential idea of it meets the love frequency. And this all comes together within a deep field of being. The deep field of being is real. Then you have this experience. But we're also talking about, now think about this, we are in creation, experiencing creation. When we usually think about seeing an object, though, we're outside of the object looking at it. We're not inside of it. You can't get out of creation to look at creation, you know, and assess if it's real or not. So if you call all reality an illusion, you're an illusion too. Okay, so if you say reality exists as information, then I'm information. And my substantiality is an illusion. What does that mean? It means it's meaningless? No. But that is how people take it, because you resist the idea that it's an illusion. So let's take down to the nitty-gritty attitude. The attitude people can get, even subconsciously, is that, well, it doesn't mean anything. It's just an illusion. So even if you take a little baby and gut it and pull its guts out, you know, and yeah, it seems real, but it's not really real. So, and it'll pass and we'll all laugh about it. It's a big game. It's a joke. It's a ride. Just go follow the ride. Yeah, but if your roller coaster crashes, your ride is not, you can't just say it wasn't fun. Like you say, reality is an experience. And whether you assess the experience in terms of objectivity as real, it is a tangible and impacting experience, okay? And the impact is no joke, in my opinion. However, if you are outside of reality, if you are in some design state looking in, you're divorced from it. So, of course, it doesn't affect you. Then you can easily say it's an illusion. That's called denial, in my opinion. You know, because it reduces us when we lessen the experience, you know. Now, then we look at it deeper and go, okay, yeah, but if reality is this and we get upset about it and all of this, we just should kill ourselves because it's too much to bear. If this is real, then there's no escape. You see, if it's not real, then there must be something that is real, then I can go there. You know, so it's a way to give myself a solution. It's uplifting. So my attitude does improve, but it improves at the expense of my relationship with reality. No matter what I say, I will not commit as much to a game as I will to something that's truly meaningful, real. It's like, well, you know, tell somebody their children are not real. They're souls, but they're not who you think they are or what you think they are. It's just a game, your relationship with them, you know, it's temporary. It's like, well, what happens with that deep bond, you know? It's almost like, you know, you're psychologically numbing yourself, and I can understand that, you know, and I'm not belittling it, but I'm saying that in order to confront the crises of our reality, we need strength, we need fortitude, we need clarity, we need commitment. We need to muster ourselves, and we don't need to struggle in a fight. That's what everything tries to make us. But we need to stand on our own 2 feet, because we're not invalidating reality when we're considering an illusion, or when we take away its dimensions and say it's not 3 dimensions, it's 2 dimensions, or 1 dimension, or no dimensions. Or maybe 5 dimensions, but nobody's ever seen the 5, so it's just some hypothetical thing. We remove ourselves from where we are. We remove ourselves from the here and now. So let me get back to this hologram. A hologram is an interference pattern, a pattern of waves meeting each other and creating something that doesn't look like the image they're supposed to represent. The image is in that pattern, okay? It's like a possibility, but it's real and it's in there. But we're talking about a play of light. Now, instead of light, what if you had matter waves? What if you had space-time? What if you had gravity waves? What if you had something that's so tangible and so solid that it would snuff us out if we confronted it, like a black hole or something, you know, which I think is also a theoretical construct. You see, these are difficult concepts. We tend to oversimplify because we get headaches because we're not used to concentrating. You know, this is like, oh, going round and all this bullshit, the same thing. Well, because nobody's listening. It's hard to listen to these things because you're not used to them. So yeah, blah, 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 and then a little clarity with 2 words, and then blah, blah, blah. So let me again make this attempt, because reality is not an illusion, but it's also not real as we think it is. So your conclusions, I believe, were correct as far as I'm concerned. That is both and. Reality is an illusion, and it's because it's not what we think it is, but it's also a very tangible and impacting experience. It is made of consciousness, but it's not just consciousness stretching and expanding. There's also forms of consciousness. There's the expanding form, which is light, and there's the contracting form, which is, you might call it the yin form or the feminine form. And when the two interact, they create form, matter, energy. They move together, the whole polarity thing. So I believe in this, you know, this is what makes sense to me. Out of the polarity, you might say, well, there's a unity, but that's beyond, you know, if you call that God, then you're missing the whole creation of the two. It takes 2 parents to make a child. I believe in the as above, so below thing. I believe that, well, you know, whatever your reality is here, whatever you can perceive, it gives you hints of what it also is at a deeper level. It's like a self-similarity, which means if you look at a fractal and you look at it and then you magnify it, you'll see the same forms in the magnification. And then you magnify it even more, you'll see the same forms. Or if you zoom out, you'll see the same thing. But not exactly the same, variations on a theme. So if you're observant, then you can experience and feel, because love, I'm a human being, I feel love, right? Well, then it must exist somehow at a cosmic level. You know, it must exist at a deeply material level, at a deeper level. And where does karma come into all of this? If reality was not connected, if the above and the below were not connected, if this wasn't what we call a hologram of interconnecting vibrations that are very real, very tangible, and very dense, and at the same time alive, in my opinion, then karma would not work. Because karma is not justice. Karma is not God punishing you. Karma, by the definition of the word, is not policing your actions. Karma is simple cause and effect. If you do something, it's going to have a reaction. But since you have a relationship with other people, whatever they do also has a reaction. It has a reaction on them, and it has a reaction on you. And you react to the reaction from them, and they react to the reaction from you, so it goes back and forth, and it's a little more complicated. So certain people who have completely denied their emotions, have completely denied their vulnerability or intimacy or empathy, you know, if you're a psychopath, in other words, there are ways that your awareness can shift in such a way as to throw your karma onto them. All you have to do is make them agree. So let's look at all these legal straw man theories. You know, basically they are tactics to make somebody's karma fall on you. Somebody does a crime, you get punished because you've signed a contract. This is not something because there's some legal system of angels out there saying, oh, they're following the rules. If you sign this contract, you know, blah, blah, blah. This is basically you convinced to follow a certain pattern. That, you know, because you follow A, B is connected to A from the back door that you don't see, but it's there. And because you're not really looking, because you're dumbed down, or because you're in denial in your own way, or because life's too hard, or because you're stressed, 1,000 things, you've agreed to basically carry the load of somebody else's wrongdoings. Why are they wrongdoings? Because they hurt reality. They hurt this thing we call the illusion. Well, water can take the shape of its container, okay? The fluid doesn't have a shape of its own, but it's not an illusion. So perhaps reality is malleable. Perhaps reality can change its form and shape. However, it doesn't mean it's insubstantial. And what happens is if you poke reality and hurt it, because we're all connected, you're poking and hurting yourself. But if you have a way to deny it, to use the force of your own consciousness in an alienating manner, then, and if you manipulate others who are gullible and dumbed down or whatever and conditioned in some way, they can take on your cross. You can make other people suffer for your crimes. How does God allow this? Well, the whole concept is that God is immersed in this whole process. You know, the Christian idea of a creator, in my opinion, I don't go against all of this, but I'm saying that it doesn't explain things, okay? It brings up far more contradictions. And whatever the spiritual reality, the Gnostic or mystical Christianity reality that is true underneath all of this, it's been corrupted by ideas that are basically making you bow down to authority, cosmic authority, or, you know, and that's what it's for. This creator created you, he can do whatever he wants. He's male, or maybe he's female, or it doesn't matter, you know, but it can do whatever it wants, and it loves you, and it slams you for a reason, but that doesn't explain things. As many philosophers said, then either this creator has to be completely insane or completely evil, or a mixture of both, or it doesn't care. But how can then it be made of love? How can God be love and not care? How can God be love and be evil? Well, there's ways you can actually explain that, but that doesn't really matter unless the explanation gives you a solution. And the solution is your own attitude, because you're smart enough. Everybody's smart enough. Most people are, at least. The ones that aren't, you know, are on a different level karmically, you might say. But notice that many, many esoteric metaphysical ideas are trying to convince us to opt out. We just live in a biosuit, you know, we're going to take it off, we're going to go somewhere else, go into the light, don't go into the light. This is just an illusion, get out, or nothing, or it's meaningless, or we're powerless, you know. All of these things are designed to just either make us passive or to look forward to some afterlife where something else can come in and take our place, maybe. Maybe something else recognizes the value of this planet. Maybe all these myths about God seeking gold, maybe the gold isn't really physical gold, because gold is a metal that actually enhances one's ego, and esoterically is connected with that. So if I wear gold, for example, people will be amazed by me more. It doesn't just shine, it conducts electrical energy, etheric energy, whatever you want to call it. It conducts mental energy. People used to wear gold headdresses. They covered themselves head to toe with this stuff, you know, the old ancient rulers. And they were impressive with it. And people were awed by it. It wasn't just a visual, it was the energy of it. So whoever owns gold, their word becomes law. Gold is the metal of kings for a reason. So gold really is the power to rule. This is why they came here. Human physicality, and because combines consciousness with grounding into the material plane. There are I don't believe there are other beings. We wouldn't be so valuable, mythologically speaking, if we were commonplace. Again, the myths come around, say, and New Age ones especially, of, no, well, there's shitloads of ETs out there. There's ET races, this, that, and the other. They're far better than us. They're all material. They all have great technologies, but nobody's helping us. You know, they just look at us with some prime directive non-interference, let the humans screw themselves, but they're not screwing themselves. These evil guys are coming and screwing them. So I think somebody's pulling a fast one there. I think all of these stories, and you know, there are conspiracy type whatever saying that, well, you know, there's one famous channeling work called the Law of One, the raw material or something like that. Well, somebody from MK Ultra did hypnosis therapy on the channeler, the main channeler who influenced the other ones, and put the ideas into his head. It was an experiment. There was some dealings with that kind of thing. And so a lot of the New Age channeled information is implanted, very likely, it can be implanted by these operatives. So it's made to divorce you from your own spirituality. Of course, it has to be based on the real deal. I really do not condemn the so-called New Age because it's interesting. There's all of this crap and all of these little gems in there too. And so when you condemn the whole thing, the gems go out the window. It's been like this forever. I mean, in order for us to constantly keep taking the karma of those with whom we cannot, recognize as doing so in a functional way, in order to be victims, to keep us in a victimized state, every kind of possibility of empowerment is discouraged. Witches are burned, heretics are burned. Anybody who's into spirituality is ridiculed. They lose their jobs, unless the spirituality is bogus or harmless. So, and it's so ingrained that it even comes out of the populace. If you start getting into things, people's heads hurt. They're conditioned like that way. It's too much. My head hurts. I listen to YouTube videos of somebody trying to express deeper things. My head hurts. It's a response. They can't communicate as well as they probably want to, but I can't absorb it as much as I'd like. So I'm left with pondering on my own, and certain meditative methods can clear the mind, can open it up to inspiration, and et cetera, et cetera. Many people are against certain substances, and it's been, shamans use substances. Ayahuasca is popular, but however you pronounce it, but it's, a difficult experience. Plus it's tropical. Every place on the planet, from the Arctic to the tropics, has medicinal plants. And some of these medicinal plants sensitize you to the pulse of the earth and sensitize you and open your awareness. But all of this is prohibited by society. It's so prohibited that we're all like, we don't mind getting blind drunk. That's fine. Getting wasted and killing ourselves with alcohol poisoning is great. It's promoted. Other things are not. And maybe some things like, cannabis are now seen as medicinal, but it's all been taken by corporations, and the plants are being genetically altered, or you're taking one essence of it from another essence when it all actually works synergistically. We don't want to open our minds. The thing is that at a deep, deep, deep level, and this is where I agree with the New Agers, we are not powerless. But if we have to accept that we are not powerless, we also have to accept that we are not, that we are somehow responsible or able to respond, but also part of the whole situation. We are actually on some level agreeing to it. This is not a conscious agreement. Our avoidance of pain or of what we're afraid of or what they're telling us we should fear, it can easily have the same effect as being complicit. Okay. But the thing is, it's not as simple. All of these things that are said, the sign of the dotted line, the straw man thing, I take them with a grain of salt, but I also believe that they underlie a certain spiritual truth, and that attitude matters. And that if the society has gone a long way to create artificial egos and make them puppet around so the true self remains oppressed and afraid to express itself. And when it does express itself, it can't help but spout bullshit. And so anything anybody says, including myself, is going to be a certain amount of bullshit, because this is where we are. So our ideas about karma, it will help to clarify them. And so what have you said, Aristo, all this time? Well, I'm just saying, observe it, If you can take a few words from what I said, just look around you, apply them. Look at what's going on. See when individuals or anybody, without placing blame or pushing guilt, look at the patterns of how we're conditioned to mimic those who try to condition us, to victimize us. And so you don't have to be a shill when you come out and support the establishment on some comments section, on YouTube or whatever. You can easily be somebody who's convinced, but at the same time, you can also be a shill. Sometimes you can tell the difference by the way people phrase it. Sometimes you can be a bot, you can be an AI or something doing it. That's why they all want us to be the cookies and the information and the tracking. It's not because they want to put us in concentration camps. They want to find out how we're ticking. They want to find out if there's an inkling of revolutionary essence or independence inside of our being. And I believe there is, and they know there is, but they want to find out how to get to it, how to manipulate it without us being wiser for it. Because once you realize what they're doing to you, and if you can feel it, you know that you are not powerless, because if you are being victimized, that's why they say nobody's innocent. It doesn't mean that anybody's guilty. It just means that whether you're capable or not, you still are part of the system. You're part of the reality. This thing you call illusion, you're an illusion too in a way, but that means that you're probably far more powerful than you think you are. So your image of your so-called ego or persona or whatever is limited, and all spirituality tells us that. So I'd like to part this month, at least, with this idea that please pay attention, and your attitude matters. And when you have an idea, ask yourself, how does this idea affect me? Does it empower me? Does it disempower me? Do I really want to be empowered in a way that helps to transform the planet, or do I really not care and prefer to go somewhere else? Will I give it over? Am I lessening myself or increasing myself with what I believe? And don't be afraid to test out other beliefs or other ideas or other ways of perception. So that's all. Thank you once again for bearing with me. Until next time.
Thank you, Aristo. Namaste.
Namaste.